welcome to this space. My name is Brittany Porter. I am an energy healer and an ascension coach, and today we are doing a procrastination workshop. Why we procrastinate and how to heal through the things. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm doing a TikTok live, and that's who I'm talking to in the comments. So remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more healing content and more workshops. If you're here with me live, if you give me a follow, I do workshops in the future as well here. Okay, I was coming here to avoid things, but I guess I need to be here with the procrastination. So there's many different reasons that we procrastinate. It's not just because we're lazy or unmotivated. There's things that are going in our physical body, emotional body, spiritual body, mental body, and that's why I wanted to cover them today, because a lot of times we feel so much like shame and guilt because we're not doing things, but oftentimes there's deeper rooted layers to why we're not doing the things. Or there's some tools that maybe we don't have that I can go over today that will help you make more forward movement, okay? So who in here is procrastinating on something? And I don't mean just doing your dishes or making your bed. Like, this can also be like bigger life things too, right? It can be like chores, right? But it can be picking up new projects or new hobbies, or maybe you want to ask for a promotion at work, or maybe you want to have a conversation with your partner, or maybe you want to make big giant shifts, like move somewhere else or get a completely different job. But we are taking our sweet time with it. Okay, me, okay, I know it needs to be done. When it comes to doing them, it's like there's a big blockage. Yes, we're going to talk about the blocks today. Or not the blocks, things that we're working through. I most definitely am procrastinating on a big project of making my own healing business. I'm totally procrastinating on showing up. And showing up is one too, like maybe it's content creation that you want to do, or a healing business, or starting your own business. There's a lot of different things that we can procrastinate on, not just like homework and chores and stuff. Okay, so the first one is perfectionism. That one trips us up a lot of, oh, it's got to be perfect before I can get into it further, right? But the only issue with that is that's a never-ending cycle with everything in your life. Like, perfectionism as a whole has to really, has to really be healed at the root. Like, why do we have these perfectionism tendencies? Because even if we clear it with one thing in our life and just say like, okay, we'll just do it, and however it is however it is, right? But then it spreads into a lot of other areas in our life. And where is that coming from? A lot of times perfectionism is parents. Let me know if this resonates with anybody. This is parents who held way too high expectations on you. Like, they're like, you have to get an A or else. Or you held those expectations on yourself. This is something that I used to do with my son, actually, where I'd be like, oh my gosh, you're so smart, and like push that like so much, instead of kind of like focusing more on like him diligently working, right? Because then you're like, oh, you're the smart kid. Does that make sense? And so anything that you do that is below that level is seen as like not enough, like your self-worth. So that's one thing that spurs perfectionism. The other, okay, let me read some of these comments first. Okay, perfection paralysis. That's a tongue twister. Well, looks like I was led here for a reason. Struggle with perfectionism a lot. Well, good. I'm glad to have you here. Yes, the parents' trauma that has now become generational. Yeah, I really have to catch myself with my son and making sure that I am talking more about his efforts and not the expectations of like, you have to get A's, right? Like, let's make sure that we're paying attention to things more so than it has to be an A, right? Or creating good habits. Let's see. Mikey, if you want to do a reading, there are my websites up there on my profile for one-on-ones. Okay, so the other one is your parents telling you that whatever you're doing, the project is not good enough. Like, oh, you could do this better. What if you do this? What if you do that? Like, I always use this example of, if you have a little child that comes up to you and shows you an art project, right? And they're so excited about it, right? And then the parent's like, oh, well, you could have done this a little bit different. That seems like something very minor, right? But it can have like everlasting effects. Like, that child might not feel like they're ever good enough to do like a career in art. or like pursue like a creative outlet, right? Just from that one little moment of their parents who are supposed to be giving them like unconditional love. And it's not necessarily the parents' fault, right? Like sometimes we just say things and aren't thinking of them, but you just have to be mindful, especially if you're a parent, of those things. But maybe your parent said something like that to you, right? Or like undercutting you, like, oh, it's not good enough, or you could be better, right? So that will fuel the perfectionism. Okay, the next one is people pleasing. This is one that I have. Oh, thank you, Michelle. This is one that I have worked through a lot of, doing things because you should, right? And that will keep us from doing the things we want to do because we're wearing the lens of, well, this is what everyone thinks I should do, right? Ooh, this hits wanted to be an artist and was told it's not dependable. Yup. So like for me, I'm gonna give a quick example. So with my son's father, it was just not a good relationship, right? I won't get like too into that, but I needed to leave, and I stayed for a very long time because society, family, all of these things would tell me like, oh, it's better to stay with the stability of a family than exit on the kid, right? Or on my son. And so I had wrapped up like this whole identity and reality around like a people-pleasing thing, right? Eventually I left, but that's what trips us up, right? Or what will people say about me? Like maybe we don't want to start a project or a hobby or a new career or a new identity or start dressing differently. Good morning. Because we're worried about what people are going to say about us. The thing about that is when you evolve and you grow, you either those people come with you or you get a new set of people. Like, but it's a little rocky in that inter what is that word I'm trying to think of? We'll just say in the in-between. It can be a little rough on the in-between, a little rocky on the in-between, but just know people will either come with you or you'll get a new set. But you can't hinge your whole reality, and you can't hinge your whole, like you cannot put your life on pause and hold because of the fear of other people's perceptions. Maybe those people have their own fears and projections and way of looking at reality that don't match yours, and you don't need to pull down your frequency to match that of people that have fears about themselves or their own lives. Because don't take advice from somebody that is not where you want to be. Okay? like that is a huge piece of advice that I learned that has been very beneficial for me. I don't take advice from people that aren't living the life that I want to live. Like, and not saying that you shouldn't listen to other people's perceptions, right, and opinions and their truths, because it is great to like bounce things around, but don't let somebody stop you from doing something or say you should do this or you should do that when they're not living in that reality bubble themselves, because they're looking through their own lenses of fear, right? And they'll put that stuff on you subconsciously. Okay, learning other people are not the ones living my life. Exactly. They don't have your experiences. They're not in here, right? I think a lot of times we think people know us on a very deep level. You're the only one that knows you on that very deep level. Okay, if you're happy now, that's all that matters. You're a huge person in my life, like a great mentor. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Okay, but people-pleasing comes from childhood most of the time, because we have like very chaotic situations in our life, or we experience a lot of trauma. Like I see this a lot with clients. Like this is one of the biggest things that comes up with my clients is people-pleasing from childhood, because you're trying to keep the peace. You're trying to make sure everybody else's needs and wants and desires are met before yours, because there's safety in that. There's like, if everybody else is happy, then I can relax because everybody's in a good mood. Right? And so a lot of these things that we're experiencing now, we have to ask ourselves, where is that coming from? Why am I doing that? Because if you're coming from like, I'm doing that because of things that are going on in adulthood, you're not going to heal it as much if you don't go in and like heal your inner child on it. Because your inner child, hey Sarah, I'm going to get back to you later today, Sarah. But your inner child is the one that was hurt initially. Hey Jenny. Right? So think about when you were a child, like back here, okay? Did you grow up in very chaotic and traumatic situations and you just tried to get along to go along? Right? Like bypass what you need. Or maybe you didn't have a voice to like speak up. Or maybe you had very overbearing parents that were always like yelling at you and like stuffing you down. That rolls over into adulthood as well. And so that's why this inner child healing that I'm always talking about is so important, because you can heal the conscious adult mind, but you got to get to the root of what's going on. And so when we say like the people pleasing or perfectionism, sometimes it's healing just to ask yourself, where is that coming from? Instead of just saying I'm lazy or unmotivated. Because if you're saying I'm lazy and unmotivated, you're doing the same thing that your parents did to you. Like that is generational trauma. You saying like, why can't you just get up off the couch and go wash the dishes? You are hurting yourself. And when you think about, it's not, a lot of times we think it's us talking to us, like the adult us, like why can't you just get off the couch and wash the dishes? You're actually talking to your inner child or your inner teens, or saying like you're not good enough, you could be better, you could be doing this, like you could, like you need to work harder, right? Like that that is directly talking to your inner children, exactly how your parents have spoken to you, or teachers or friends. And so that's, we're going to talk about that more, but that's why we have to kind of like train ourselves to heal the inner child and stop speaking to them like that. Everybody who wants to fix their inner life or fix their life should start with their childhood. Most of the stuff is coming from there. I told my therapist that I'll make everyone happy and forget myself. Yeah, it's a safety response. It's a trauma response. If everybody's happy around us, then we're okay. And nobody's trying to attack us, right? Or we did our job. Okay, the next one is fear of abandonment. So I had some very major abandonment wounds from childhood. And so it caused me to think like people are always going to leave me, just a whole assortment of things, right? But something I found was fear of abandoning yourself. So I would not take leaps of faith or take chances or start new things because I didn't think that I would follow through. Like other people in my life who did not come through for me, right? And so do you think that about yourself? Like who in here is like, I'm worried if I start something, then I'm not going to finish it? Where is that coming from? Is that because it's people in your life who have done that to you? So you think you're going to do that to you? This is why we have to ask those questions of where is this coming from, right? Because what we see is, oh no, you're just being lazy or you're not believing in yourself. There's something deeper. It's, oh, we had narcissistic abusive relationships, whether it was parents or, you know, romantic partners or whomever. We had real catty friends or whatever, just had a lot of trauma in relationships. You can incur a trauma within yourself with relationship to self, right? Or like if you picked people like that to be in your life, then you're like, okay, well, I picked those people, so that means I can't trust myself. This is stuff that goes way back in your subconscious, right? That you may not even be consciously aware of. But like, okay, well, if I picked Fred, who was abusive to me, or talked down to me, or manipulative, or gaslighting, or love bombing, obviously that means that I can't trust myself, and I don't make good decisions. And so if you want to start a new project, or a new career, or you want to move somewhere, you're taking the energy from this relationship with Fred and putting it on yourself, right? When that's not your fault that you, most of the time it's not your fault that you went to Fred. Okay, that's because of things in childhood that you went towards that relationship in the first place, which is not your fault because it's a learned behavior. It's learned behavioral patterns, right? And so when we're saying like, oh, I'm just being lazy because I don't want to start, let's see where that's, let's dig deeper. It's hard to decipher trauma from my bipolar disorder. Yeah, bipolar disorder is, it's a trickier thing to traverse, for sure. I've had some clients with bipolar before, and it's a little more to dissect. Okay, Fear of abandonment with others too. Like sometimes you'll want to like start a project that involves other people, right? Like maybe you want to do a podcast. Maybe you want to start a spiritual business with somebody, right? But there's that deep internal fear of, okay, well, if I put my trust in somebody else, that means that they are going to fail me, or they're going to trick me. Like you can get even like paranoid about things like that, right? Because you've seen that in your past, and we're pulling from past experiences to predict our future over here. So this is those behavioral patterns and cycles that we get stuck in. All right. Fear of communication and confrontation. So this is one I see with clients a lot too, is like you're afraid to go ask for a raise. Or like you're afraid to have that conversation with your partner because you're afraid like even though consciously you know as an adult nobody's going to yell at you, okay? Or maybe they are. Maybe you need to work on boundaries. Right? Or get a different, healthier relationship, but we're so afraid that somebody is going to say, oh, you're dumb. You don't know what you're talking about. Or look like a fool. Or somebody's going to yell at us. Or or like the audacity of you to ask that. Right? Okay. Where is that coming from? Why are we afraid to ask for what we want, for what we deserve, ask for boundaries with people, right? So that's a form of procrastination because you're worried about having to have the conversation or a confrontation. But the only way that you heal through that is one, go back and find like what's going on with your inner child that caused that, and helping your inner child like learn how to be brave and strong. They already are, but like we forget. Learn how to be brave and strong, and then you putting them in the situations to show them that you are strong and that you can handle it. So like I know it's scary sometimes asking for a raise or whatever that you want to ask for, right? Or a promotion. But we're not going to heal through that until we prove to the inner child that we have the capabilities to do so. And I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. The next one is fear of being popular, being perceived. So this is a big one with content creators or anybody that wants to, be an online presence. Or maybe this is also like you asking for that promotion in your job, right? And saying like, oh, there's going to be more eyes on me. So this is one that I found within me very recently. Okay, I, for the majority of my life, had very like narcissistic people around me and energy vampires and just a whole slew of people that were not good. Right now, I'm not saying it was their fault because a lot of that was me attracting people like that. Okay, because I was not coming from healed spaces. But I had a deep internal fear with my inner child where she was saying, if you level up in your career, in your business, and your content, that means that we're going to have more and more and more people like that around us. And so that means that we're going to be unsafe and that we're going to be hurt. And I was like, girl, we don't have people like that in our life anymore. Sometimes there's like a disconnect between where we're at right now and our inner children, where they don't like see where we're at in life. They just think they're still stuck in these like old trauma loops. And I was like, we don't have anybody like that in our life anymore. Like, and let's say that we get to the level of like Oprah and Tony Robbins where we're out like doing public speaking. I was like, why do we think that it's only going to be negative people and energy vampires? Like, why couldn't it be like super magical, positive, awesome people that lift us up and we have super fun experiences with and like and love us? Like, why are we going to negativity immediately? Right? So like the fear of being perceived, the fear of being popular, people telling us that we don't know what we're talking about, that we're wrong, that like, just all those things. And I was like, oh, okay, I see why I was having that internal fear, because that's all I knew for like 25 years. Okay, but now we're not in that space anymore. And so this is what I mean by going back and like explaining to them like, hey, we're not living that experience anymore. We're out of that. Okay, or maybe you're still working through it with your kids, or still working it with your life. Like maybe you still are in that space. That's why it's important to get yourself out of those spaces so you can do this healing to detach from that time in your life. Okay, the next one is what ifs. And that's what I was talking about. We procrastinate because of the what ifs. Like, catastrophizing and going to the worst case scenario is a trauma response and a safety mechanism. Like you say, well, what about this? And what about that? What about this? If you do that, then you can be very prepared, because you're like, okay, this happens, then this is how I'll handle it, or this happens, this is how I'll handle it. The only problem with that is the more attention and energy that you put into something, the more you'll get of it, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, if you're just constantly thinking about what will go wrong, it will. And I know that's easier said than done sometimes, because I still do that as well sometimes. Like, focusing on, you know, the what ifs, but you had to do that from childhood too. That's me. I always have the whole alphabet in plans. Yes. You're almost looking for it to go wrong, though. And then that's where we get caught in these cycles of, see, I told myself it was going to go wrong, and it did. Or it didn't work out how I said. And then you're reaffirming to your subconscious, like, yep. And then it keeps happening over and over and over and over again. I was reading this children's book the other day when I went to the bookstore, and this little girl in the book it was called the What If Bugs. And it was like all these bugs on her, and like they were always saying, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? I'm in here or something. Mikey, send me a message on my Instagram. soulharmonymagic, okay? Because I don't know if I received that or not. But just send me a message and we'll figure it out. But what if it goes right? Okay, so the bugs are like all over her, and it's causing so much anxiety and so much stress. And then this other little girl comes up to her, and she was like, what if the most awesome thing ever happens? What if you have super fun experiences, or magical experiences, or whimsical experiences? And like something clicked inside her, and she was like, oh yeah. She was like, I could just have the positive what ifs. And then all like the little bugs like kind of like transformed into like positive bugs, and they were like hyping her up and celebrating her, and like she was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And then all these awesome things started happening. And so when you think about the what ifs, you open the window of opportunity for the universe to bring you something in your guides or yourself, something like super positive. But when we focus on the negatives, you close the window, because you're like, this is exactly how it's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. Self-fulfilling prophecy. And so we have to like counterbalance that with, well, what if this and what if this? Now, the reason sometimes that it's so hard to catch the what ifs, the negative ones, and change it is because you think that's your adult mind. You think it's conscious you. That stuff's coming back from your subconscious, and your inner child is saying those things as an alert system. They're saying, well, this happened in childhood, we saw this, and this is what happened, and this and this and this and this and this and this. This is why it's important to talk to your inner kids to break that, like break away from their consciousness and say like, no, I'm the higher self, we're okay, we're safe, this is no longer happening anymore, I love you, you've got to trust me enough to prove it to you that we're not living in that paradigm anymore. Right? Like that still catches me up. Where like my inner kids will just be like spewing up stuff from childhood, and I'm like, no. We're okay, it's fine, it's safe. Okay, so this one's more of like tangible, like not tangible, but like chores. Okay, sleep is my safety mechanism. Sometimes we just get so overloaded that we have to go to sleep. Our central nervous system. Okay, so chores. So, especially if you have ADHD, a lot of times, one that's like executive dysfunctioning, we're gonna talk a little bit more about that, like dopamine. But if you're sitting on the couch and you need to go do the dishes, and you're like talking to yourself like, you should go do this and you should go do that, or you have things that you didn't do that you had planned, and you're berating yourself for it, and you're saying you had 10 things to do on this to-do list and you didn't do all of them, like you suck. Okay, did you have parents that also did that to you? Oh, bye Sarah. I'll message you later. Did you have parents that did that to you? Did you have parents that say, like, get your butt up and go do this and go do that and blah, 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 and blah, 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 right? Yes, absolutely did. That's a generational trauma response. Then you're doing the exact same thing to your inner kids that your parents did to you. And then you wonder why you don't want to do it. Because it's you have negativity attached to that chore. Always mad at myself for what I didn't get to do. Yeah. But like a lot of times we're reiterating traumas that our parents taught us. And so like, why would an inner child want to go wash the dishes or vacuum? Because you've made it like a super negative thing that they don't want to do. And all they're doing is hearing mom and dad or guardian like yelling at them. And then they're shutting down internally. Yes, but I hid everything under the bed and in the closet. My son be doing that. I feel terrible when I can't be superwoman and I have to ask my husband for help. That's also like hyper independence is a trauma response of like I can't rely on anybody else to help me. Right? Okay. Shame and guilt. Shame and guilt for like the household chores or cleaning out your car, cleaning your home, giving your dogs a bath, like whatever that is. Like if you don't do it and then you feel guilt and shame, that's how you're going to feel about it moving forward too. How you're always going to feel about it. Like if you feel guilty and shameful over not doing the dishes, the next time you go to do the dishes, you'll feel that same feeling and that same vibration, and then it'll just keep going in that pattern. And we're going to talk about how to help heal that. But I just want to say that real quick. When you're doing chores at home, if you leave it in a negative vibration, that's where you'll pick it back up. And your inner kids will hate it. Especially if you had parents that did that to you. Okay. Another reason that we procrastinate is feeling overwhelmed. Like if we have like a big project, or we want to like switch careers, or we want to do a new hobby, or we want to start a business, like whatever that is, and we're like, oh my gosh, there's way too many steps. There's way too much I need to do. And then we just put it off and put it off and put it off and put it off. Like and your fight or flight comes on, your central nervous system. That's exactly the same thing that I'm talking about with the chores. If you leave it in a negative vibration, and when you think about doing the new thing, you attach negative emotions to it, you're not going to do it. Because your body associates something that's supposed to be really positive and really fun and expansive and putting you in a new life or a new reality that you want to be in with being negative. And so your body's like, well, I don't like doing negative things, so let's just not do that. So you kind of like override all the positivity around it. Yes, or you won't be good enough or different enough to stand out. Yep. That's probably coming from childhood. You won't be good enough, or your parents telling you that you're not special. Or you being misunderstood during childhood and not seeing like how your gifts, like what your gifts are, right? Like a lot of people who are hypersensitive or like empaths, they think that there's something wrong with them when they're growing up, especially when like you're in childhood or middle school, high school, and it causes you to isolate away from others because like we just don't understand our gifts. But those are also our superpower. We're just seeing it through the lens of like, this is something terrible. Okay, hey, good morning. Okay, feeling overwhelmed. We have lost our why. Yes, I've been empathetic, and my father would tell me the world revolves around me. Yep, that's gaslighting. That is gaslighting. Not intentionally necessarily, but in not taking the time to understand and just blanket statementing. Okay, we have lost our why. A lot of times we procrastinate because we don't really know why we're doing something. Like you think you know why you're doing it, but there's always like a deeper root going on there. Like, do I want to talk about that yet? Okay, I'll just skip to it. Okay, so I was going to school for psychology, and I was going to be a clinical psychologist. Like I was going to go the whole like 8 or 9 years, right? I got in college, going to school for psychology, to come time to do my master's, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I don't know if this is the route that I want to go. Like, I love helping people. That's what I want to do. But I don't know if I want to do it in this capacity. Like, I don't know if I want to sit in an office and have to go, like, nothing against therapists, but like there's only so much like you can do in therapy opposed to like what I do now, like energy healing and coaching and things like that, because like there's certain things you can say and not say within therapy and the spiritual journey. Okay, this is before I got into all this stuff though. Okay, and I was doing a lot of people pleasing with myself of like, no, I said I'm gonna do this, so I'm gonna do it, and this is what society tells me I need to do in order to do this thing, right? I lost my why around like the structures around it, and I was pigeonholing my reality and saying like, I've got to do it this way, and I wasn't leaving the window open enough for the universe to like show me a different avenue of like what I'm doing now, right? But like, why are you doing these things? Whether it's like the behavioral pattern, the trigger, why you're procrastinating, we just keep asking ourselves, why am I doing this? We know that we are, but we don't ask ourselves enough oftentimes, why? Why do I want to start this project? Why do I want a new career? Because when I talk to clients sometimes, they say, I don't know, I just want to, or I hate it here. Okay. We got to dig a little bit deeper though, and like, what is it that you do want then? Because if you don't have a clear picture of what you do want, it's hard to make forward movements. Like, you have to have tangible goals to work towards and not just default to, I just don't like this. Right? Why don't you like it? And what would you like? Whether it's chores, you can break that down with chores too. Like, why don't I want to do the dishes? Keep digging, because most oftentimes you'll find the root of it if you keep asking. Okay, hermit mode. This is one that I'm currently kind of in right now, is sometimes our ideas are not fully developed. Sometimes we have like clues of like, okay, this is gonna be my next move, but it's not fully solidified, but we beat ourselves up like, why aren't you moving forward with this? Well, we don't have all the pieces yet. Okay, or like our guides haven't downloaded all of that in, or maybe we have like a general idea of what we want to do, but it's not specific enough for us to start making movement on yet. So I was listening to somebody yesterday talking about this, and they were saying, when you're kind of in this space, just take notes. Like, have a notes app in your phone and just be like, I really like this idea, this idea, this idea, this idea. And then you get your subconscious working on it. Your subconscious is always working in the background, right? Like trying to work things out. So if you make notes, like a notes app, and say, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea, your subconscious is going to continue to work those out for you without you even having to consciously do them. Like, I have a notes app in my phone where I put like all these different content ideas and workshops and like courses and like what I want to talk to y'all about, right? I don't always follow through with all of them. And I don't beat myself up because of that, because sometimes it's not the energy. Sometimes, you know, people are more interested in hearing about something. Maybe I'm not interested in talking about that right now. But if I get it out of my brain and like stop taking up all that space on my conscious mental whiteboard, it creates so much clarity up here, right? I need to hear that about being in hermit mode. Yeah, like sometimes you're just so flushing out what you're doing. And then sometimes if we jump too soon into doing something, whether that's like you talking to your partner, reacting instead of responding, right? Like we've all been there before, or with our kids, or we start a project too early, or we start like trying to do a career change too early, right? We haven't fully fleshed it out yet, and then it doesn't go the way that we want, and then we start feeling guilt and shame. Like, some of us are a little impulsive. Okay, like that's also an ADHD thing of impulsivity, like I gotta do it right this second. Okay, sometimes we need to give it a breather. I always say, do not make like major decisions until you have a good night's sleep, or a couple good nights sleep. Like, you need to back up off of it and look at it objectively before you just jump in there. Right? I need to brainstorm further out so my angels can help. Yeah, absolutely. Then you can ask, like, that's great. You can ask your guides, you can ask Source, you can ask Mother Gaia, you can ask your friends, you know what I mean? Like, give it some space and some time, and not feel guilty or shameful for not, like, doing it right out the gate, right? Because I've done things like that and then it didn't work out how I wanted, or I got wrapped in and involved in things that I probably shouldn't have, and then I feel really guilty, like, oh, I should have seen the holes within that, right? But it's because I didn't give it enough time to breathe. I have huge impulses but end up sitting on everything. Well, that's a different thing. If you don't take action on any of those things, like, there's a precipice point of letting things breathe and just not doing them. I'm always impulsive. If I'm not, I forget to do it or talk myself out of it. We got to keep coming back to those lists too. That's the thing. We can't just, like, make a list and then just, like, it's gone. Like, we have to keep coming back and flushing it out, right? I always love tuning in and listening to you explain things so nicely. Helps things click. Oh, good. Thank you. I'm glad. Okay, the next one is multi-passionalites. If you are ADHD, okay, or a very high frequency dimensional being, you are probably interested in a whole bunch of different things. And it creates kind of like chaos within you, because you're like, well, I like this, and I like this, and I like this, and I like this, and I like this. Or you procrastinate on doing any of them because you're like, okay, well, I'm going to get started here, and then I get bored with it, and I don't want to move to the next thing because that means that I'm not following through. Some of us have archetypes where that's what we're supposed to be doing. But society tells us, no, if you do that, you're not going to be successful. Okay, but some of us thrive in that capacity. I hyperfixate on things, then get bored and start something new. If you are wanting to start a business or be an energy healer or whatever it is that you want to do, or like you're an artist or a creative, sometimes that's how you function. But then we feel shame and guilt over that. Like, for me, the way that I do healings with people and, like, clients is, like, I have picked up so many different things from different places and then blend them into one. Like psychology, metaphysics, like everything from everywhere. Akashic records, Reiki, light language, starseeds, light workers, empaths, ADHD, like all these different things. But I found a flow within that of, like, that's okay because that's how I function. But when I first started, I would, like, berate myself and say, like, no, you have to only do this one thing because that's what society tells you have to do. Well, I'm living, breathing proof that is not true. And I know a lot of the people that function this way, is you need to learn a little bit from everywhere to create something new. Like Nikola Tesla, Elon Musk, like all of these people, like Albert Einstein, all of them are very innovative people because they're not doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. They've picked up a little bit from all these different places, and they just give themselves enough grace and compassion to say, okay, well, if it's not working right now, it'll come back to me if it's meant to. You have to be willing to accept that part of yourself and stop trying to fit in and people please and do things like other people are doing, because that causes a lot of procrastination. Oh, well, I have to niche down into something. There's something to be said about finding, like, you can't be doing everything, okay? Like, you can't do everything, but you can have a wheelhouse of things that you do, right? And then it keeps you not getting bored and burnt out, because when you start feeling that burnt and boredom, then you can just move over here. And then you do that until you come back around. Okay? Let's see. So here are some tips for us to move forward with these things. Okay, like we talked about earlier, where you leave something is where you will pick it back up vibrationally. Abraham Hicks talks about that a lot. So if you are thinking about washing the dishes and you think about how much you hate doing that, it will always be that way. Or if you're thinking about making these big career moves or these big changes or whatever it is in your life, or picking up a new hobby, but you're instantly thinking about the what ifs and all the negativities, that is how that progression with that thing will continue. Negative, 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 negative. So we have to retrain to think about the positives. That's where the positive what ifs come in, right? 10 minutes forward movement. So with chores, this has been like a life changer for me, okay? Timers are so important, especially if you have ADHD. If you think about some type of activity that you need to do, okay, and it is an indefinite amount of time in your mind, like washing the dishes sounds like it would be like 10 minutes, right? Or vacuuming your house, or, you know, whatever it is. Creating a website, starting a business, okay? That is too much overbearing weight. And it's like, I don't know how long that's going to take. In ADHD, you already have things going on with time discernment. Okay, so if you can do anything for 10 minutes, it will get you in the forward movement to do whatever you want to do. Like, I utilize this every single day. Like yesterday, I was really tired and I did not want to clean. Like, I just didn't want to do it, but I internally, like, my soul was like, hey, we would feel a lot better if we just did like a little bit of cleaning. We would feel great, right? Set a timer for 10 minutes and then you're up and moving. And then you just keep going. Like, I ended up cleaning the house for an hour and a half yesterday. And then I felt amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so clean in here. It's like new energy. Like, I just feel so much better, and I was getting energy from it. I thought it was going to be draining to clean, but it actually gave me a ton of energy, and then I felt better. Not only like physically, but like emotionally and spiritually. I felt better, and then I took a bath afterwards, and it was just great, right? But I could have sat on the couch and just sat and watched TV for an hour and a half and then still felt yucky. And I'm not saying not to do that, because like resting is fine. Like, we don't need to push ourselves too much. But my soul, there's a time for sitting and watching TV and chillaxing. But my soul was saying, you will feel so much better if you clean up some of the stuff around the house. And I did. And then there's other times when my soul was like, why don't you go sit down and watch a cartoon? Or go watch some anime or something, right? Yeah, I gotta listen to that internal voice. Or like my porch that I have. Like, it was super, super, super messy and uncluttered. It was very overwhelming. And I was like, oh my God, it's gonna take forever to do this. And my higher self was like, remember, let's set a timer for 10 minutes. And then I did that, and then I cleaned for 2 hours. Sometimes our hyper-focusing with ADHD can be our best friend. But you got to get the forward movement into it, if that makes sense. But this is anything. If you want to start a business, you want to do homework, you want to, like, whatever activity it is, on your phone, set a timer for 10 minutes. It is life-changing, because then your brain's like, okay, well, the timer will beep at 10 minutes, and then I have a choice whether I want to continue or not. It's the indefinite amount of time that catches us. Especially because with ADHD, you already have, like, we don't view time in the same way as a lot of other people. Okay? It's not as tangible. But that timer ping will keep us in check. Like, I have a really difficult time meditating for an indefinite amount of time. Like, I have to have a timer on, because then my brain can relax and I'm like, okay. Or like stretching, 10-minute timer. Okay, I know when 10 minutes pings, I can make a decision on whether I continue or not. Okay. The next thing is celebrating yourself. Retraining your brain. So if you weren't gonna do it anyway, but then you do it for 10 minutes, but then you sit there and say, well, you only did 10 minutes, it completely negates the whole entire thing. Time passage awareness disorder. Yep. Okay, if you berate yourself for only doing it for 10 minutes, it negates everything you just did. You have to hype yourself up and celebrate yourself for doing that 10-minute activity. Like, you have to say, oh my gosh, I'm sick, because you're really talking to your inner kids. That's really actually who you're talking to. You have to say, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you for us doing that for 10 minutes. Whatever it is, work on your business, dishes, clean your house. I'm so proud of you. Because now we're getting dopamine and we're getting serotonin. And we're saying like, oh, this feels good. It feels good to make forward movement. And forward movement is forward movement. It does not matter how much it is. If you're doing something 30 seconds more than you did yesterday or that you didn't do yesterday, that's something to celebrate. It's something to tell yourself, like, I am so successful for doing this. Look at me. I'm so proud of myself. It doesn't matter if it's washing your teeth, taking a shower, whatever it is. Celebrate yourself for doing that, because now you're retraining your brain of like, oh, I am successful no matter what I'm doing. That's huge forward movement in your life. Like huge, huge. Because if you can celebrate the tiny things, the big things aren't as scary. Because you're like, no, I can just break it down into 10-minute increments. I will do it in 10-minute increments until it gets done. You can do that with completely starting a new business, going into a new career, learning a new skill, learning a new talent. If you can do it for 10 minutes, you can do it. But you have to celebrate yourself for doing the 10 minutes. Celebrate yourself along the way. Because if you're not celebrating yourself along the way of a big goal, when you reach that big goal, you're going to be like, okay, what's next? And then you'll be in a perpetual state of, I'm not enough. I'm not doing enough. Well, yeah, I made that goal, but what's next? And then you're bypassing happiness. And you'll just be in that cycle forever. But if you can celebrate yourself for brushing your teeth and putting a timer on for 10 minutes and vacuuming, or 10 minutes and watching a YouTube video on how to build a website or whatever you're doing, your brain will be like, we got this. We can do anything. We can do anything we want to do if we just break it down to 10-minute increments. Okay? Inner child healing, we talked about before. Inner child healing is so incredibly important with procrastinating, because most of the things that are coming up are coming from childhood. Self-worth, confidence, self-esteem, too high of expectations on ourselves, worried about abandoning ourselves or other people abandoning us. Like, inner child healing, all of these reasons that you're not doing something are coming from somewhere else. Because you rationally, as a conscious adult, know that doing these things are good for you. You know that. Why are you still not doing it? Because the inner kids and the teen within you that incur trauma are saying, I don't want to do that because of this. And that's our job as the higher self to go in and say, hey, and like reparent them. Or, you know, hold compassion and love for them and show them better ways of doing things. We can't just let them override our experience. And not talking negatively about them, but there are some times when I'm procrastinating on something and I know it's because my inner child is hurt or experienced something. I have to go back in and talk to her. Otherwise, it will just continue that behavioral pattern. And I'll say, okay, well, I understand that if we start this, okay, like the example I gave earlier, when I start getting more followers on TikTok, we'll just say, okay, that was a big one where I was like, oh, even though it seems like it would be good, right? But then I'm getting more comments, I'm getting more interactions with people, like, you know what I mean? And I have to talk to her and say like, hey, it's okay. Look how lovely these people are. These are not narcissists. These are not people that are trying to hurt us. This is not people that are trying to take our energy. These are lovely beings of light, magical beings, fun. We love talking about these things, right? But I have to check in with her. Otherwise, I stop making content because of the fears of being perceived or the fears of getting more popular, right? But I have to go back in and speak with her about it. So when these things come up, ask yourself, where did this originally come from? And find that inner child within and talk to them. Okay, I've got two more. Accountability. Accountability is so incredibly healing and will kick your butt in gear. Okay, because sometimes we just not want to do things because we're scared, like fear, right, of like being seen. Like, let's say that you want to, oh, one second. Let's say you want to start making content, right? But you're so afraid, or you want to hold a workshop or a class or something, right? And it's just indefinite. You're like, okay, well, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it in a week, or I'll do it in a year, or whatever, and then you just don't do it. Okay, you have to set a date and a time. When I was first like learning about life coaching, there was this coach that said, tell people that you're gonna do it, and then you'll show up. Like I would put a class or a workshop together, and then I would tell people like, hey, I'm gonna be here at this time on this day, and then I would be there. But it's because I told other people. Or if you have a friend or a family member that you're like, hey, I'm gonna do this, then it keeps you accountable to it. But you have to put dates and times on things and show up. Self-clothes, I gained weight, so I stopped taking pictures of myself in the clothes. Oh yeah, that's a tough one. I have, I don't know if that's like a body dysmorphia thing, but that's something that I have worked on for, for a while with myself. But put a date and time on it, or find somebody to hold you accountable. Like I have an accountability partner, my friend, and we tell each other like, hey, this is what I'm working on, and we'll check in with one another like, okay, well, where are you at on this? Where are you at on that? And sometimes it's not comfortable, and sometimes it's not fun. Like sometimes you have to be that person for that other person to say, well, why haven't you done this? And not like in a judgmental way, but like more of a supportive, encouraging, like, how can I support you with this? Why do you think that you're getting tripped up, right? And like really piece that out. Accountability partners are so important. Or like me, okay, yesterday I told people I'm gonna be here at 9 a.m. this morning, and I'm here because people are expecting me to be here. They're expecting to hear me talk about procrastination. Okay, when I first started doing workshops and classes, I was petrified. Like I would cry beforehand, and I'd want to throw up, and like I'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I'm gonna show up because I said I'm gonna be there, and I did. It's not, I don't want to say like force yourself to be there, but that was like a pivotal moment in my experience of like, if we say we're gonna be there and tell people, then we will. Okay, not failure, growth moment. This is a huge one too. Like I always say, okay, well, what if I fail? What if I look like a fool? What if, you know, what if? Okay, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail. Things are not gonna work out. It's not gonna go how you planned. Like those things happen. Okay, or like it just like goes off tracks or whatever. It happens. Like you have to be okay with it not being okay. What the pivotal change is you seeing that as a growth moment instead of a failure. Like if you say, well, I failed, so I'm not going to do it again. Or it didn't go the way I wanted. Okay, maybe it didn't, but what can you do next time? Like I'll hold classes and workshops or lives or whatever, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe that didn't go exactly how I wanted it to, or I could have said this, or I could have done that, but I'm not going to not do it again. I'm going to take what I learned from there and then change next time or improve next time. Like when I first started, I had workshops and like one person would show up. Okay. And like, instead of saying like, oh, well, only one person showed up, so obviously nobody wants to hear what I have to say. If I had kept on that trick, I wouldn't be doing this full time. Instead I said, okay, well, maybe I could advertise in a different way or market a different way, or maybe I could post about it in different groups, or maybe I change like what I'm talking about, you know, like it's if you're wanting to be very, very successful in life, you have to be wanting to be a problem solver, like a Sherlock Holmes of your life. Okay, how can I come at this in a different way instead of looking at it as a failure? Because then you're not putting any like positive energy into it, and then you're just not going to do more things, right? Not failure, growth moment. Okay, any setbacks, anything that doesn't work out, it is a growth moment. I did not fail, right? And when people say, oh, you're gonna, like when I said that, oh, you're gonna fall on your face, you're gonna fail. No, you're not. See how that's two different vibrations? This is a growth moment. I fell on my face. Or, this is a growth moment. it really, really changes how you look at your life, right? Okay, does anybody have any questions about any of the things that I talked about? I'll stay on for just a second and answer those if you do. Okay, reframe it and learn from it. Absolutely. That has been a huge game changer for me, is just saying, okay, well, that happened. What can we learn from that? And how can we grow and move forward? Instead of being like, oh, well, I failed, it sucked. Okay. So if you want some help and extra support with healing your inner child and healing those things, or you want deeper levels of understanding or clarity, or you need an accountability partner, because we don't always have like a friend or a family member that can provide that for us. If you go to my website, which is up in my profile, or if you're on YouTube and you go down in this description below, it explains how we can work one-on-one together. Okay, just loving this whole thing. So many notes. Thank you so much. Oh, you're very welcome. You're welcome. But if you need some more support, I can help you with